Hello everybody, welcome to G4G here on YouTube. Today we are taking a look at what is Overwatch, an introduction to Overwatch. So Overwatch is a new property from Blizzard. Blizzard, famous for the Diablo series, Warcraft, Starcraft. They are now dipping their toes into the shooter market. And this game is basically their first foray into it. I wouldn't consider Blackthorn way back in the day a shooter. It was a platformer. So this is a game in the emerging genre of what could be called hero shooters. And while it does have its roots in TF2, we'll talk about that. Let's talk about hero shooters. So what are Overwatch's competitors or compatriots, its brothers in arms? Well, we have Paragon, Paladins, Battleborn, and Gigantic. These are all games coming up called hero shooters. Now, Paragon by Epic, the original creators of the Unreal Tournament series and Gears of War and Jazz Jackrabbit and all that, that one is a completely different one from the rest of these. That one is a full-on MOBA with a shooter element to it, a third-person shooter. Gigantic is a kind of a MOBA, but that one is also a third-person shooter. Now, Paladins and Battleborn are probably its closest competitors to Overwatch. Now, Paladins is going to be free-to-play. Battleborn and Overwatch are both purchases. Battleborn is going to be a little different in that it is the only one with actual PvE, player versus environment. Now, Battleborn is from the 2K production house, the same people who do, of course, BioShock and Borderlands. So you can expect a lot of humor in that, and I have covered that one on this channel and will be covering it as I do own Battleborn. Overwatch is strictly for people who want to fight other people, whereas Battleborn can be done with the intent to never ever do player versus player in it. Now, there is player versus AI over here, but that is a little bit different. Battleborn actually has a story to... interesting. Okay, so yeah, you can do private games this way. This is how you can do private match, and this is probably how comp is set up, competitive Overwatch. So Battleborn is one of the only ones where you can get it to actually play through a story similar to, say, like Destiny, Borderlands, etc. So a hero shooter is basically defined as you are playing a character in the game rather than just strictly a generic class. And now the roots of a lot of Overwatch came from TF2. So we definitely have to give a nod to the fact that there is TF2 out there, and it is definitely one of the roots of the tree. A lot of Overwatch is based on elements of TF2, especially some of the game modes. Now, in Overwatch, we have modes like Capture the Point. Once the point is captured, it begins generating score for your team, and it will continue to do so until it's contested or you lose it. You also have Capture the Point and then Payload, and then straight up Payload. And these, of course, all harken back to TF2. Payload is definitely one of the things. Most moved caught faster comes from TF2. Capture and Payload is a little interesting. There is no straight up DM, TDM, Last Man Standing, or even Capture the Flag. I kind of feel like Capture the Flag would be a little tough to pull off in Overwatch. I think the spawns would have to not be on the flag room in this game in order for it to work. I think they'd have to be offset a little bit. So if you can think of an upside down Y, the flag would be at the bottom of the single stroke of the Y, and maybe your spawn areas would be on the left and right forks of it. That seems like it makes sense for this, rather than say like UT, where you could spawn right there. Potentially, you could do display spawning like UT has been known for, and that if somebody is able to view the area from the enemy team, you can't spawn there. So the game is pay to install. This is not a free-to-play game, and there was some discussion as to whether or not it would be free to play. And the reason why they decided not to do that and have character unlocks is so that a player can install the game and immediately get on a character that is needed for the situation. So for example, if you are defending and the payload is about 50 feet away from getting capped, and you're about ready to lose, and you need a tank character to help push things back, you have the tank character. And you are not restricted based on the fact that you just installed the game yesterday, you're playing with your friend, and you don't have the tank character available. So that's why they have not gone with an unlock system in this. They want everybody to have every single power imaginable. And that's why they are doing the game that way. And I think that's pretty solid, because that means everybody is on equal footing when the game starts. Now, typical of this game is you have several abilities per character and then an ultimate. You can see my Genji ultimate is ready over here. That is what that is over there. Now, being the fact that it is a hero shooter, it does have classifications. And the classifications in this are basically support, tank, damage, and sniper, builder. Now the difference between damage and sniper is that damage is like what Genji is doing. Basically, he is sustained damage. He's not really going to one-shot anybody. If you're looking for the sniper type classes, that's your Widowmaker and your Hanzo. I kind of disagree with the fact that Hanzo is able to go ahead and actually one-shot somebody. I kind of feel that should be Widowmaker's category, and only Widowmaker, but Hanzo is definitely capable of it. So looking at the screen over here, we have the tankish characters in D.Va, Reinhardt, Roadhog, Winston, with Reinhardt being one of the absolute biggest. He's really good on pushes because of his shield. Your support would be people like Lucio, Symmetra, Zenyatta, Mercy. Zarya is a little bit of support also. She provides shield. She doesn't provide direct healing, but she does provide shields. Your builders would be somebody like Torborn, and Symmetra gets into building also. Your sustained DPS would be people like Genji, Junkrat, McCree, Reaper, Pharah, Mei, Tracer. And that is pretty much it for the categories. You also have Soldier, who is sustained DPS. Now, beginners may want to look into heroes like Soldier 76. He's fairly straightforward. He's just the archetype of just any shooter out there. Reinhardt is a pretty good tank for people to get used to, although I would kind of recommend Roadhog a little bit better. Roadhog is a selfish tank. He just does his own thing, and he heals himself, and he hooks people, and he can get people out of an ultimate, and he's got a very good ultimate himself. But he's not necessarily taking one for the team other than getting his bulk up front. Reinhardt, you actually have to play in such a manner that you are potentially sacrificing yourself. You're getting out in front of your team, you're putting the shield out there, and so on. If you're looking at a beginner support, I would recommend Lucio. He's the support I play right now. He has the ability to boost the team's speed or heal them depending upon what mode his gun is currently in. His sonic gun He has a great sound barrier that basically takes everybody's hit points and ups it by about 1.5% or 1.5 times. And he's very, very solid. Mercy is pretty much a direct healer, straight from like the medic in TF2. And then after that, it gets a little bit more complicated when you're looking at people like, say, Zenyatta, Symmetra. Torbjorn is a straight-up builder class. This is very similar to the engineer in TF2. He's able to build turrets. One of the things that most people complain about when it comes to Torbjorn, and the reason why he's been looked at by the developers a few times, is that his turrets are extremely powerful. Unlike, say, TF2, the turrets in this game are capable of snapping. TF2 turrets had a little bit of a turn radius to them. If it was aiming east and you came at it from the west, it would take a little bit to spin around and come back to you. Well, these turrets are actually fairly snappy, and the range in them is also extremely good. It makes him quite obnoxious, and you see his difficulty is 2 stars. If we were to take a look at Soldier, he's a 1 star. Soldier's got a lot of good sustain to himself. Pretty much a standard gun with a rocket. He's able to drop a biotic field which heals himself and his allies. Tactical Visor basically activates an aimbot. Is what it does, is it gives him aim assist that makes him extremely tough to deal with. If we look at Reinhardt as a tank, you can see he's a 1 star. He's recommended for a beginner, but the fact that you have to play a certain way for him, you might not find him that easy. Lucio's rated as a 2 star. I kind of consider him a 1 star healer. Mercy is a little bit more complicated. Her ultimate is a resurrect, which is very good, and is actually, they've changed the way play the game works, in that you never used to see healer play the games out there, and then Blizzard listened to the community and made it so that like a decent res, like a 3-4 person res late and in a push, can actually wind up being a play of the game. Now, play of the game is basically something that you run into at the end of a match, and that is usually a defining moment. It's not always the defining moment. Sometimes it's just a very flashy moment, like, say, Hanzo's ultimate arrow going through and killing 4 people. It may just be a 4-person death, but not the one that maybe stops the cart from being pushed, and then your team wins. So these are all the characters currently available at launch. Junkrat, Torbjorn, and Bastion are often the most despised characters, especially if they wind up getting a play of the game. It's often called the Trashgen play of the game. As you can see, he's considered a low star difficulty. Basically, he can turn into a tank mode, and it's certainly very good if he can get his back into a corner and he just turns into a turret and he absolutely mows people down. And you can see an example of it here. And he does have ammo, but it's really good and he doesn't burn it through very quick, and his reload timer is, of course, extremely solid. His ultimate is to go into tank mode, where he has some of the best splash in the game. And you can see how big that splash is over there. He has limited shots, but it's extremely damaging and will get you around corners. Once you are playing, several characters have extremely loud ultimates, and if you hear them, you want to watch out. The whistle from Bastion is bad. D.Va has a loud nerf this, and you can hear her mech blowing up. You will get that big triangle marker. Line of sight works, but some environmental objects like cars and everything don't work very well. for getting around that. Hanzo's is very loud. Junkrat's is very loud. McCree says high noon. His is very loud. Lucio and May are fairly quiet. Mercy definitely has a very solid announce on her, too. So there goes the Hanzo ult.
Heroes never die.
That one's fairly loud, so you know if a Mercy has used that one. There's no really good way of telling whether it's one from your team or an opposing one that does these, because you never really hear a different. I mean, if you hear Hanzo ultimate, you don't know if it's your team's or the enemy's. Pharah is pretty announced. Reaper is also very announced. Reinhardt really isn't. You don't hear Reinhardt ults that much unless you're in the area. Roadhog has no major announcement. Soldier 76 is kind of mild. You have to be fairly close to hear it. And you can see the aim assist over there. Symmetra is not loud. Torbjorn is definitely announced fairly loudly. You will hear Molten Core pretty clearly. And as you can see, he's building super fast, and he gets a mega turret, along with his damage being buffed up. Tracer is fairly localized. Widowmaker is fairly localized. Very, very hard to hear Winston ults, unless you're right there. His is very good for environmental kills. It's very easy to knock somebody into death traps when you're doing Winston. Zarya is, again, she's another one who's fairly quiet. Basically, it's a giant graviton ball that pulls everybody in. Sometimes you don't even know what's happening until you realize you can't move. And Zenyatta.
Pass into the iris.
As you can see, he's fairly quiet also. Most of the positive ones, the friendly-based ones, tend to be quiet. Whereas the more damaging they are, the louder they are. So here's the Riptire. You could hear that one coming. Now, the Hanzo one definitely can sneak up on you. You want to make sure that you get away from the closest wall. Especially if it's a wall of a building and not like the edge of a map. The ultimate will pass through them, and there's nothing worse than being close to a wall and suddenly that ultimate comes through the wall and you don't know it. Like if you're standing in that building over there and all of a sudden that thing just comes through the wall like Ghostbusters, you have no chance to react to it. And that is pretty much a introduction to Overwatch. We got to take a look at the different classes of the heroes in this. We have snipers and widowmakers, Hanzos, then you've got a bunch of DPS, support, tanks, builders. Some people do kind of cross categories a little bit, like soldiers healing can heal others, but you can't really consider him a healer. Hanzo is a sniper, but his ultimate is pretty big and can be kind of considered sustained DPS. You get loot boxes every time you level up, and then when you open them, you get items for your characters. So you'll see these unlock numbers over here. I wish to definitely unlock some more for May, as she is one of my mains. If you get duplicates, you get currency, and you may also get just flat out currency in the loot boxes. The currency can be used to buy things. So, for example, if I want to have something that is not a stock May because I play her fairly frequently, I can take 250 out of my 320 and buy her. Now, a lot of the legendary skins are very, very different. So, the rares and the uncommons and everything tend to be the stock skin, but different colors. You won't see too much different. between them. It's when you get into these, like, more legendary ones that it really, really changes what you get out of the character. A good example would be Zarya. So, palette swaps, again, palette swaps, and then she gets into very different skins. That one makes her look like Mei, almost. God, wow, that's... yikes. It's the Goth Kids episode of South Park. McCree's got some really cool legendary skins. Gambler, Riverboat, pretty cool. Mystery Man, Vigilante. Wow, that kind of looks like something out of the Watchmen. And one of my favorites, believe it or not, is actually on Pharah. So we have Mecha Queen and Raptorian, and then you have Rain Dancer and Thunderbird. I think Rain Dancer is one of the best skins in the game. I just think that's so awesome. I just think they captured the spirit of it so well. And that I play a lot of Lucio. And I mean, that's radically different too. And then it gives him hockey. So you also get things like emotes. And then you have sprays. Your victory poses are what happens. This is how you look when your team wins the game. This is what your character will be posed as. Voice lines are what you say during the game. Sprays are decorations that you can put out in the world. Similar to TF2, except TF2 has the custom sprays. And then you have highlight intros, which is how you will look if your character gets to play the game. So it'll do this first, and then it will actually play the play of the game. And God knows we're going to see tons of Trashtian play the games over there. Some sprays are character specific, some are generic. And some are really cool, like that one. That one's also pretty cool. And, you know, if you start getting duplicates, you could always just build up your currency and buy the ones that you want. So here, as you can see, I've got a bunch of Reaper sprays unlocked, and then I have generic ones like the logo, Well Played, the Red X, and an Omic. There are achievements in the game, and you can find that out by going to Career Profile, and you could go to Achievements, and you can unlock some things here, like see Well Played, Forge Onward, Man and Omic, and then you have category-specific ones. Like here, I have a couple of May achievements, tank ones, support, maps. So you can get the Red X by preventing an attacking team from touching the payload for a minute in quick or competitive play. So it's a very robust game, and if you are a fan of the shooter genre, this is definitely worth a look. It's currently in its open beta form. The pre-order beta has expired now. This is just plain old open beta, and then the game will release later in May, probably without too many differences from this. So this is strictly PvP based. If you're not interested in playing other people, you probably don't want to pick up Overwatch and maybe want to go over to like Battleborn instead. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this look at Overwatch. It's definitely going to be a game that's going to be occupying quite a bit of my time as it comes live. Standard options, social, profanity filter, you know, typical over there. Career profile, same thing as we got over there. And you can see 4 hours of Lucio, 3 hours of May, Roadhog, McCree, Reaper, and that's who I've been sticking with. So guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.